Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Praptasya Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Vajo Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingaratanama Diramarjanado Juktasya bhaktamsya niyunjatopi Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shanga Chaturvidashi Bhagavati Prasadu Kridaiva Tripti Bhajata Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Gavayarapara Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Sa Dhanalalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Nekunjayuno Ratikari Siddhai Jayali Bhiri Juktir Apekshaniya Nekunjayuno Pratikari Siddhai Jali Vir Jukti Tatra Tidakya Ati Balavasya Pande Gora Shri Charana Vrinda Sakchadharitena Shamasta Shastri Ruktastatha Dataiva Sadubhi Kintu Pravarja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gora Shri Charana Vrindam Priya Eva Tasya Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Dayam Stubam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gora Shri Charana Vrindam Tin Sandhyam Vande Gora Shri Charana Dayam Stubam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gora Shri Charana Vrindam Vande Gora Shri Charana Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachattarisha Tarine Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Prachar Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachattarisha Tarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Aur Bhakta Vinda Jaya Chaitanya Nityananda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Hariyaraye Namah Krishna Jadavaye Namah Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda, Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava, Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan, Bhatta Raghuna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Shri Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe, Radha, Radha, Nila Madhava. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra, Jaya Jagannath, Baladeva, Subhadra, Jaya, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Pramanande, Haribo, Jaya Vishnupada Paramita Prabha Jagacharya Sutara Saraswati. Ijvan ke Sabhochar Bin Bhakti Viranta Swamara Shira Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Bhaviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Siromani Gaurapriya Jana Krishna Prem Bhakti Data Patit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gaurya Guru Vargapati Udhar ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji ki jai. Jayananta Kuti Vaishnav Vrindi ki jai. Prem Si Kaho Si Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauru Bhaktavinda ki jai. Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Prema Nama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavarana Avatar ki jai. Golokera Pramadhan Hari Nam Sankitan Jaga ki jai. Jugo Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Brihad Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopina Radha Kund Samakun Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Shri Brajabhumi Vrindavan Mathura ki jai. Teloship Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai. Shri Mayapur Navadvip Ekachakra Dham ki jai. Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Purushottama Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanushingari Bhagavan ki jai. Jaganga Majamana Mai ki jai. Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Mathura Dharani ki jai. Shamaveta Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Nitai Gaurari Pramanande Haribo. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gaurang. Gaur Hari. Can you sing with us? The boy. Hare Krishna.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Daine. Hiranyakasipurvakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye.
Jaya Silatanka Nakalaye.
Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Ito Nisinga Parato Nisinga.
Yato Yato Yami Tato Narsimha.
Jaya Yato Jato Jami Tato Nisinga.
Bahe Narsimha Hrodaye Narsimha. Narasimhamadem Sharanam Prapadye. Tava Kara Kamalavare Naka Madbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanu Bringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Narsimha Dev, Jaya Narsimha Dev, Jaya Narsimha Dev, Jaya Narsimha Dev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol.
जय श्री श्री भक्ति पद सर्व विघ्नाशना कर सिंह हरि भगवान की जय। जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। निताय गौर हरि प्रमानंदे हरि 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 बोल। Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devi Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namo. Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namo.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Leya Vilasi. Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi.
Shitomaya Sharanaloy Dara Vansha Purnahoy. Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavana Vasi.
Tumi Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavana Vasi.
Moraya Vilas Vilas Kunjariya Vas. Nayane Hariva Sada Shugala Ruparasi.
Aminayane Hariva Sada Shugala Ruparasi.
Eni Vedanardaro Sakir Anugata Koro. Sevadikara diye Koroni Jadasi.
Sevayadikara diye Koroni Jadasi.
Dina Krishna Dase Koi Ey Namoraho. Shira Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Sadayana Vasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi.
Yani kani cha papani Brahma tyati kani cha.
Yani kani sapapani Brahma hatari kalesa Tani tani panasanti Pradati na pare pare. Yani kani sapapani Brahma hatari kalesa Tani tani panasanti Pradati na pare pare.
Brahma tyati kani cha. Nani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade.
Kani sapapani Brahma hatari kalesa Tani tani panasanti Pradakshina pare pare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo.
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namo Namah. Vrindai tulasi vai priyai ke sabasata Vishnu bhakti prade devi sattavataye namah. Vrindaya tulasi devai priyai ke sabasata Vishnu bhakti prade devi sattavataye namah. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindari ki jai jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. I desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavadyanis of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always sing love Shri Radha and Govind. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanam Majanam Pavamada Bhagni Nirvapanam Shri Akari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidya Padu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pradipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paravijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitani Amitta Shmarane Nakala Ita Drishita Vakripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrisham Yajaninanuraja Narapi Sunichena Tarurapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sarari Madhanam Najanama Sundari Kavitam Vajagadishakamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishari Avatar Bhakti Ainanda Tanujakinkaram Paritamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Para Pankaja Sitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galavra Shrudharaya Vadanam Gata Ghadarudaya Gira Pulakari Chitam Bapu Kada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Yugaikam Nimishena Chakshusha Brahmasaitam Shunyaitam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Verahename Aslishavapadaratam Pinashtumam Adarshana Mahatam Karotuva Jatatava Vidadatu Lampato Matpranatastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, Your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your casual devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, or will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Gaura Tvishena. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, to blaspheme the devotees, to dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2, to consider names of demigods, our Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4, to blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and pursuits of Vedic religion. 5, to consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6, to give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 8, 7, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8, to consider the one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as yoga activity, karma kanda. 9, to instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10, to not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be interchangeable chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prem. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai.
Prayers ki jai. Om Yatimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksusun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manuvistam Shapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jitahapa Chakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivasavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupa Nugabhaktita Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasidanta Dvantaharine Namo Guru Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vamsakalpa Turabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premapadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurituse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhaktakam Damami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatprate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Yaratam Suratur Pangur Mama Manda Matergati Matsarva Swapadambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpajumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastadi Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasarasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatakstriye Stuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranam prayers ki jai Shri Brahma Smriti ki jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhe Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chentamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vritesu Surabhira Bipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satatsam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Vainam Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamarya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shaman Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendri Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navyovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantasta Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manaso Bunipundgamanam Sobhyasta Yat Prapadasim Yavichinti Tatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Soda Chayatam Jagadanda Kotim Gyas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatpati Bhavita Bhistabhirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilosarena Santaksa Deva Hidesa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistana Navataram Akarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamam Yo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhuvato Jagananda Koti Tiswa Sesa Vasadadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagananda Satani Sute Jai Gunya Tad Atishaya Vida Vitaya Manam Sattvavulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasuya Praninam Patifilam Swanatam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajastram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nichidamni Talechatasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sute Sutesu Tete Prabhavani Jaya Vitastayena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Sristista Te Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Apyasya Chesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambhutama Pitata Samapaitikariat Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Evahita Santanam Abhyabetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrik Evahitya Vishnu Tayavibhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Karna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalamya Param Samurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kala Matavalamya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavishesho Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesuna Jesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayata Pitatvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dwande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Kanamambu Marudisascha Kalastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschaksuresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Sesa Tejaha Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Sutayastapam Se Brahma Dikita Patagavati Hasta Jivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdhati Kintu Jabakti Bhaja Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Biti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurav Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Taramapurete Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriyakanta Kanta Puruma Purusha Kalpataravo Drumabu Mischintamani Ganama Yituam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chiranandam Jyoti Param Apitada Swatyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Vihisravidi Surabi Vyasta Sumahan Yume Sardakya Vavrajati Nahiya Tripisamaya Bhajay Svitadvipam Tamaham Ihagolakam Ityam Vidantas Te Santakshati Virachalya Katipaye Shri Guru Pranama prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I, for my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Street, is such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus Street as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Street as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Street as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastime of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Street as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto Lotus Street as such spiritual master. The spiritual master to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is the bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 21. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 22. Tatasya kainkaryam alamritam no vigalpayat anga yad ugrasenam tistan yisanam paramesti yisnye nyabodayat deva nidadayeti. Tat, therefore, tasya, his, kainkaryam, service, alam, of course, britan, the servitors, na, us, vigal payati, gives pain, anga, ovidura, yat, as much as, ugrasenam, unto King Ugrasena, tistan, being seated, nisanam, waiting upon him, paramesti disnye, on the royal throne, nabodayat, submitted, deva, addressing my Lord, nidaraya, please know it, iti, thus. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain us, his servitors, when we remember that he, Lord Krishna, used to stand before King Ugrasena, who was sitting on the royal throne, and used to submit explanations before him, saying, O my Lord, please let it be known to you. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna's gentle behavior before his so-called superiors, such as his father, grandfather, and elder brother, his amiable behavior with his so-called wives, friends, and contemporaries, his behavior as a child before his mother Yasoda, and his naughty dealings with his young girlfriends cannot bewilder a pure devotee like Uddhava. Others, who are not devotees, are bewildered by such behavior of the Lord, who acted just like a human being. This bewilderment is explained by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Avajananti mam buddha manasimtanam asritaha param bhavam ajananto manma bhuta maheshwara. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge belittle the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, not knowing his exalted position as the Lord of everything. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained his position clearly, but the demoniac atheistic student squeezes out an interpretation to suit his own purpose and misleads unfortunate followers into the same mentality. Such unfortunate persons merely pick up some slogans from the great book of knowledge, but are unable to estimate the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees like Uddhava, however, are never misled by such atheistic opportunists. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain us, his servitors, when we remember that he, Lord Krishna, used to stand before King Ugrasena, who was sitting on the royal throne, and used to submit explanations before him, saying, O my Lord, please let it be known to you. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, it is a fact that very few people will actually understand who Krishna is. Even people who are following spiritual life, but don't really have the taste to hear regularly from genuine devotees, they will not understand either. They'll understand something, but very partially. And therefore, it says in the 7th chapter, verse number 3, Manusyanam sahasresu kaschit jatati siddhaye jatatam apisiddhanam kaschit mam vititattvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So this verse, 7th chapter, 3rd verse, is very significant because it shows how rare it is for someone to actually understand Krishna. When we think that we understand Krishna, there's a very good chance that we actually don't. Because to understand Krishna, one must receive the mercy of Guru and Krishna. So it's not such an easy thing. One can understand some things about Krishna, but to actually understand him enough to completely surrender yourself to the hearing process is very rare. Very few people will do that, even initiated devotees. Therefore it says, Vedaham samititani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyami chabutani mam tu vedana kaschana. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. So here now, 2 verses in the same chapter, Manusyanam sahasresu and Vedaham samititani, both of them, Krishna himself is saying, very few people will actually understand me. And in the purport it says, here the question of personality and impersonality is clearly stated. And this is 7th chapter, 26th verse. If Krishna, the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, were Maya, material, as the impersonalists consider him to be, then like the living entity, he would change his body and forget everything about his past life. Anyone with a material body cannot remember his past life, nor can he foretell his future life, nor can he predict the outcome of his present life. Therefore, he cannot know what is happening in the past, present, and future, unless one is liberated from material contamination. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, he cannot know past, present, and future. Unlike the ordinary human being, Lord Krishna clearly says that he completely knows what happened in the past, what is happening in the present, and what will happen in the future. In the 4th chapter, we have seen that Lord Krishna remembers instructing Vivaswan, the sun god, millions of years ago. Krishna knows every living entity because he is situated in every living being's heart as the Supersoul. But despite his presence in every living entity as Supersoul and his presence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the less intelligent, even if able to realize the impersonal Brahman, cannot realize Sri Krishna as the Supreme Person. That's a very important point. Krishna is in our heart. He's in the heart of every living entity. And also, he is our benefactor. All knowledge that we have is coming from him. All remembrance that we have is coming from him. And, of course, all forgetfulness is also coming from him. He's the closest person to us. Yet, very few people actually understand Krishna and the science of Krishna. Why? Because they don't like to listen from bona fide speakers. They think they already know everything and that they're independent. So this is the example of an ignorant person. Even if they're initiated, they are ignorant because they are violating the most important principle for becoming Krishna conscious. And therefore, this is explained by Prabhupada. He says, Yad anudyasina yukta karma granti nibandanam chindanti kovidastasya Ko na kuryat kata ratim. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 1-15. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Notice what he said. Who will not pay attention to his message? The contact, Prabhupada explains, the contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work, meaning freedom from karma. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his Leela, are transcendental to the modes of the material energy. They are all attractive, spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. Knot is spelled K-N-O-T. It's not just N-O-T. There's a difference between knot, N-O-T, and knot, K-N-O-T. A knot is a very tightly tied rope, and it's very hard to untie it. Liberation from material bondages is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. That's the point. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. There are plenty of people that have knowledge. You have philosophers, you have scientists, you have newspaper people, you have people that write books, you have all kinds of devotees that have knowledge. And Prabhupada says, but spiritual knowledge, even if it's spiritual knowledge, is not enough to ensure liberation. Okay, then if spiritual knowledge is not enough to assure liberation, then how do you get liberation? Well, he explains this now. He says, attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. So you understand, the whole purpose of Vedic knowledge is to become convinced without any hiatus. Hiatus means some empty space. In other words, there's never a vacation in pure devotional service. There's never downtime in pure devotional service. If you want to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, you have to be engaged 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, 366 days in the leap year. There is no vacation in devotional service. Why? Because of love. Just like if a mother has a baby, can she take a vacation? Leave the baby in the house and take a vacation? No. No. If she's going to take a vacation, she has to take the baby with her. Right? Sometimes they leave the baby. Like many times, women have been arrested and put into jail because they left their baby alone. Just a couple of days ago, one lady went to a nightclub to drink and dance and do nonsense, and they found one of her kids in the street sleeping on the sidewalk, right? And then two other kids were alone in the house with the door open. One of the kids opened the door and went out, and then was tired, so was sleeping on the street. They arrested her, and she's going to be charged with negligence of children. This happens a lot in America, and probably happens in other countries also. You would think, oh no, this is unthinkable. How could anyone do something like that? It happens all the time. Sometimes a mother will throw the child in a garbage can because she doesn't, babies, because she doesn't want to take care of the baby. Many times they find babies in garbage. it's unthinkable, but it happens. And you can look up on the internet right now. Mother throws baby in garbage can. See what it says. So there's no such thing as vacation in devotional service. Why? Because if someone actually loves Krishna, why would they want to take downtime away from devotional service? The whole purpose of studying Vedic scriptures is to be convinced to engage in devotional service 24 hours a day. That's the purpose. That, in other words, a person who is engaged 24 hours a day, they have understood Shastra. And people who are just nonchalant about devotional service. Man, I won't get up this morning. I'll sleep in. Or, I'm not going to go out on Sankirtan. I'm a little too tired. Or this thing or that thing. They have not understood, even though they have degrees, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, Bhakti Vedanta degrees, but because they're lax about devotional service, they haven't really understood the Shastra at all. So it says, then liberation is possible. Such knowledge, spiritual knowledge, must be overcoated with devotional service. Overcoated means it's completely covered by devotional service. In other words, yes, one was studying, one was passing tests, this thing, that thing. Then they understood the real purpose of the scriptures. So now their knowledge is overcoated with devotional service. Right? Then liberation is possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruit of workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. So even the karmis, when they get involved in a lot of devotional service, and this is why we have festivals, because it gives many people a chance to be involved in devotional service by helping out in the festivals and coming to the Sunday feast and waiting in line for pizza. All these things are conducive to being engaged in devotional service. Many people say, oh, can I help and make the pizza? I want to learn how to do it. So then they get engaged. The whole thing was their attraction to pizza, but because the pizza is Hari pizza, they also become attracted to maybe making the pizza. So now they're engaged in devotional service because we offer the pizza to Krishna. You find anything?
Yes, Maharaj.
Go ahead, read it.
So a woman accused of throwing her newborn son into a dumpster and driving off last week has been...
And what?
Driving off.
And driving off. Yeah, she
last
drives,
week.
Gets out of the car, takes her baby and throws it in the dumpster.
Has been placed on house arrest and ordered to wear a GPS monitor as she awaits her day in court.
I mean, hopefully the baby didn't die. Did the baby die? Or
so she faces charges of attempted murder.
Okay, so the baby was saved. Somebody saw it and saved the baby.
And child abuse in connection with the incident, according to the city police.
There you go. And where was that? What state? Was it in the United States?
This is in Mexico.
Oh, in Mexico.
New Mexico.
Oh, New Mexico. It's the United States. It's this country. Huh?
I read another news yesterday, Maharaj, on the social media. One of the Indian couples, they had 2 children, and they're expecting another child. They put a post on the Facebook saying, what should we do with their 3rd child? That's conceived at like 1.5 month old.
They were engaged in illicit activity, and they don't want the child.
Yeah.
So someone will say, oh, get an abortion. Another person will say, give the child for adoption. So that's okay. But the abortion, that's child killing. It's child murder.
Yeah, a lot of suggestions. Yeah, that's touching my heart to read such kind of news.
Yeah, it's going on all the time. It's going on all the time. Okay, so it says, even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers, these are the karmis, these are people who are not Krishna conscious, right, can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. So that is, if someone comes and says, "Oh, I want to volunteer for Ananda Mela," okay, so they get service, and so normally they're just materialistic all the time, but now they're overcoating that materialism with some devotional service, right? Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. In other words, when a person is very materialistic, but still they want to do some service in Krishna consciousness, then gradually such a person who maybe is eating meat at home but comes to the temple to wash the dishes and maybe even go out on Sankirtan, or at least eat some prasadam and maybe come to the Aarti. Those are materialistic people. They're not pure devotees. But they're overcoating that materialism with some devotional service. Means that there is a possibility, if they take an interest in hearing the classes, that they can become purified. If they just stay doing that, they don't become purified, but they get some spiritual benefit. Maybe in the next life they'll take more interest. But unless their interest goes further to actually hearing the classes on a regular basis, then they can make tangible spiritual advancement. The fact that they're coming and doing some service is good, because they're overcoating all their materialism with some spiritual activity, which will result in some purification and some opportunity to hear from devotees. But the fact that they don't take a real interest in hearing on a regular basis means that they will not attain liberation in this lifetime. Because you don't get purified by watching a movie. You don't get purified by simply reading a book, even if it's a spiritual book. But you do get purified by regular hearing and engaging in devotional service. And above all, that means you're associating with genuine devotees who are full-time engaged in devotional service. Then you make spiritual advancement. No one ever became purified by watching a movie. And someone said, "Oh, it's such a great movie. It influenced my life." It hasn't influenced them at all. They haven't stopped eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like animals. There is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like devotees, and there's eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like an animal. There's a big difference. So they haven't really stopped being materialists. However, if a person becomes convinced, I have to hear every day this Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by genuine devotees, I have to associate with devotees and engage in devotional service and ask them questions and learn day after day more and more about who Krishna is and my relationship with Krishna. Such a person is going to make spiritual advancement. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him. There it is, by hearing about him. By glorifying him, meaning Krishna, and remembering him, and by worshiping him always, without cessation. It means no vacation, without cessation, no vacation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavana, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar authoritative scriptures. That means that the Goswamis compiled very significant spiritual books that explain how all different castes, there's Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, by following Krishna consciousness, can all go back to Godhead in this lifetime. It's not that, the Sudras can't because they're low class, so only the Brahmanas can. No, the real knowledge is how all the different classes engaged in Bhagavad Dharma can go back to Godhead by cooperating with each other and working intensely in hearing and chanting. Then they can all go back to Godhead. And they can do wonderful things because they all are cooperating. So it's a very rare thing to get a large group of people to cooperate. Everybody has their own false ego, and there's ultimately going to be differences of opinion and jealousies and enviousness and different things like that break up groups of people into smaller and smaller groups. And so Prabhupada said, Kali Yuga, as it progresses, will get so bad that every house will have its own flag, its own money, and its own country. That's how bad it's going to be. Just like they started the United Nations maybe with 30 flags, 30 different countries. Now, there's hundreds of flags in hundreds of different countries. They broke up Yugoslavia into 3 or 4 different countries. These are all different ethnicities that don't want to be part of one national group. So they start their own country. They break away. Just like in India, you had Andhra Pradesh, and now you have Andhra Pradesh, and you have Telangana, right? And before there was Bharat, or there was India, right? And now there's Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India, and pretty soon there'll be Khalistan, and also Mirzostan, and this stan, and that stan. As time goes on, these people break away, and they form their own country. And Prabhupada talks about nationalism. He says it's not a good thing because it just makes people fight. Just like the Ukrainians and the Russians, they're basically the same people. They have the same religion, exactly the same religion. Their language is very close. They're both Slavic languages, right? And their cultures are very similar. They've been living together for 1,000 years, right? But yet they're killing each other. Germany was a Christian country. France was a Christian country. England was a Christian country. Holland was a Christian country. And Belgium was a Christian country. They're all Christian countries, all European. They all were killing each other, right? And Iraq is a Muslim country. And Iran is a Muslim country. They were killing each other. 1 million men died in the Iraq-Iran war. Right? So it's the whole idea, they have the same religion, that means they should be brothers. No, they're not brothers. They're not brothers. They hate each other. They kill each other. Just like the Shias and the Sunnis. They kill each other. Or the in India, you also have the Muslims and the Hindus. They're the same people. They speak the same language, but they're killing each other. Why? Because they're materialistic. They're not actually engaged in genuine spiritualism. Although they might go to the temple or they might go to the mosque, but they're not actually in love with God. They're in love with their own false egos. So, therefore, Prabhupada says, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshiping him always, without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavana, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of the different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar authoritative scriptures. Unless we read, hear, and remember these literatures, we cannot cut the knot of our karmic reactions. So you have to read, hear, and remember. Not just read, but you have to read, hear, and remember these literatures. Suppose a man is tied very strongly with ropes, with his hands and legs bound up. He cannot move independently. Similarly, we are tied up by the laws of material nature. the more sinful we are, the more the material nature binds us. For example, we are always bound by the laws of the state, either the criminal laws or the civil laws. If we violate the criminal laws, our punishment is very severe. And if we violate the civil laws, we are punished less severely. But in either case, we are punished. So there's civil laws, there's criminal laws, and there's civil laws. Like, for example, if you do 85 in 35-mile-an-hour area, you get stopped by the police. They give you a ticket. They don't put you in jail, but you get a ticket and you have to pay. If you park without putting money in the parking meter, you'll get a ticket. You have to pay, right? If you steal something from someone or kill someone, now you get criminal punishment, which means you'll end up in jail. And there's different levels of jail. There's a low level of jail where you're allowed to work outside and come back into the jail at night to sleep. There's a medium level of jail where you're not with really very, very dangerous criminals. You're with what you call white-collar criminals, the people that cheat in business and taxes and things like that. So they're not like hardcore criminals like murderers, and rapists and things like that. And then there's the high-end jail where they're hardcore criminals, extremely dangerous people, and they can kill you in the jail. That happens a lot, right? They have gangs in the jail, and the gangs kill each other. So, and then if you're really bad, even in jail, not following the rules, then they put you in solitary confinement. You're in a dark room. You're in a dark room. You're not allowed to go out, and you just get your meals there, and you're not allowed to see anybody. It's called solitary confinement. Those are for the really hardcore people who refuse to follow any rules, even in the jail. Okay, so the more sinful we are, the more the material nature binds us. For example, we are always bound by the laws of the state, either the criminal laws or the civil laws. If we violate the criminal laws, our punishment is very severe. And if we violate the civil laws, we are punished less severely, but in either case, we are punished. For the conditioned living entities in the material world, the body itself is a punishment. But people do not know this, and so they are trying to enjoy the body just like hogs, just like pigs. A village hog or pig doesn't know how abominable it is that he has the body of a pig and that he must eat stool and live in a filthy place. So the pigs in America outlawed giving them stool because people are going to eat them, and if they eat stool, they can have all kinds of different bacterias and bugs and viruses by eating human stool. But in India, you do see in some villages, the pigs are walking around. They're big and fat, and they hang out a lot in the field that's designated for passing stool. In every village, there's a field. One time when I was in Vrindavan, I went to the Yamuna, and I was walking across this field to get to the Yamuna. It was full of human stool, and I was thinking to myself, what's going on? And finally, I was told that you never walk through that field because that's where everybody in the village passes stool. So that's another system, right? And they don't pass stool in the water or in the river. They pass stool in that field, and because of the very hot sun, especially in summer, it purifies the stool. It becomes compost, right? You can compost human manure. It's called humanure. And but it takes a little while here because look at the weather we have, a lot of rain. But in India, especially in the hot season, all the stool is purified by the sun. And the sun doesn't get contaminated by doing that dirty job. Right? That's how powerful the sun is. So it says, the pig doesn't understand how abominable its life is. A village pig doesn't know how abominable it is that he has the body of a pig and that he must eat stool and live in a filthy place. He is happy if he can simply enjoy sex with a female pig, never mind whether she is his sister, mother, or daughter. This is the pig's life, eating stool and enjoying sex life. That's a pig. Now, a lot of people here, like one day I was in this store, and this man, he was a salesman, and he had just finished eating his lunch. And his lunch was, he ate a sausage with a lot of garlic in it. How do I know that? Because I saw the remnants of it. He hadn't completely finished. So a sausage is made out of pig meat, and they also put a lot of garlic in it. So when he was talking, this wave of stink was coming out of his mouth, right? And I had to keep stepping back. And he said, "What's wrong? Why are you back?" I said, "No, I got an itch in my back." I didn't tell him, "Your mouth stinks," right? And I kept moving back because every time he would open his mouth to speak, this stink would come out of his mouth because he's got that dead stool pig in his stomach, and that's why people have bad breath, because they eat these type of rotten things, right? So, guess what he's going to be in his next life? What do you think? What do you think he'll be in his next life? Yes. What do you think he'll be in his next life? Exactly right. He'll be a pig because he's living like a pig right now by eating pig. So it's the next life. He can see, if a pig eats stool, it's not a sin. If a man eats meat, it's a sin. If you want to eat meat, then in the next life you'll get the body of a tiger or a pig or a bird, because they're allowed to eat meat and it's not a sin. But for a human being to eat meat, it's very sinful, right? And it's very bad for your health. And it gives you bad smells on your body and your mouth. And it's just and you can get cancer of the intestines because you never can really digest meat. So we are conscious of his abominable condition, meaning the pig's abominable condition. But he is thinking, oh, what a happy life I have. I am dining very nicely on first-class food, meaning stool, and having sex without any restriction. This is life. That's what the pig is thinking. And that's what people who are like pigs, and there's plenty of people like that, are thinking also. Actually, this is Maya, illusion. Maya has two energies, the Avaranatmika Shakti and the Prakseptatmika Shakti. The Avaranatmika Shakti covers a living entity with ignorance. Even though he is living a condemned life, still he will think, I am very happy, I am all right. His real knowledge is covered, and the Prakseptatmika Shakti throws the living entity down into the ocean of material existence and keeps him there. When somebody is trying to come to Krishna consciousness, the Prakseptatmika Shakti will dictate, why are you going to the Krishna Consciousness Society? There are so many restrictions there, so many rules and regulations. Better give it up. And the conditioned soul thinks, why, yes, this Krishna consciousness is nonsense. Let me give it up. You see? That's called Prakseptatmika Shakti. This is Maya. Maya has these two Shaktis. First, she throws you and covers you with ignorance, so you forget all about Krishna consciousness. And then she throws you away from Krishna, and then she covers you with ignorance. So then, even though you're eating stool and you're engaging in all kinds of sinful activities, you think, oh, this is the best life. Those Hare Krishnas, they don't know how to enjoy life. They don't eat meat. They don't do nonsense. How can they be happy? I'm eating meat. I'm doing nonsense all the time. I'm talking nonsense. I'm watching movies. I'm playing on the internet, video games, and I'm talking all kinds of crazy things. and I believe in science, I don't believe in Shastra, I'm happy. And those Hare Krishnas, they don't know what life is. But it's exactly the opposite. By giving up meat eating, giving up intoxication, giving up illicit activities, giving up also gambling and speculation, you begin spiritual life, and you live very happily, and you feel very enlightened and enthusiastic for learning every day more and more about Krishna and how to serve Krishna. And these other people, they think, no, they don't know anything, they're in ignorance. We have the knowledge, we have science, we have chemotherapy, we have also radiation therapy, we have atomic bombs, and we have tanks, and we have machine guns, and we have meat, as much meat as we want, and we can eat pig, and we can eat birds, and we can eat even human beings. Yeah, there are men that eat human beings. There was one king in Africa, his name was Idi Amin. He said that of all the meats, human flesh is the best. He actually said that. He was eating human flesh. He would kill people and eat them. So this is all nonsense. This is all ignorance. But without Krishna consciousness, one gradually gets overwhelmed by Maya, and one's intelligence is covered by ignorance, and one is thrown into a bad association, and then one thinks that they're on the right track of life, and the Hare Krishnas and religious people, they're nonsense. See? Okay, so the more sinful one is, the more Maya will prevent one from becoming Krishna conscious. That is Maya's thankless task. She is just like the police department. The police are no one's enemy, but when someone commits a crime, they arrest him, put him in jail, and punish him. Similarly, Maya is engaged by the supreme authority, Krishna, to punish the sinful living entities. Sinful living, that means someone who eats meat, gambles, speculates, engages in illicit activities, and takes intoxication. But wait a minute. One time I told one of my uncles, he said, what are you doing in this Krishna consciousness? He was very against what I was doing. I said, well, we don't eat meat, we don't engage in intoxication, no coffee, no tea, no drugs, we don't engage in illicit activities, and we don't we don't gamble. He said, what? If I had to do that, I would commit suicide. Those are the only things that give me happiness in life. You see how sick people are? He's saying, these are the only things that give me happiness. If I have to give those things up, I would commit suicide. And I told him, I said, no, you don't understand. Those things are killing you. Don't you understand? And he did die of cancer because he was eating meat, drinking liquor, coffee, smoking. You know, they don't listen. They're covered by ignorance. So it says, so Maya is engaged by the supreme authority, Krishna, to punish the sinful living entities. Look what's happening. Like yesterday, I explained that whenever there is a very bad weather, like it could be a hurricane, it could be a windstorm, it could be a flood, it could be an earthquake, it could be a pandemic, it's the sign that a bad person or an evil person has been born. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that means that some bad person was born. Now, previously there were only two big bad people. There was Ravana and there was Kamsa. And when they were born, very bad things happened with the weather, right? But now we see the weather is always, not always, but very bad at certain times of the year, and sometimes in some places it's always bad, right? Why? Because very bad people are being born. That means there's many more bad people being born now than in previous ages. So it is possible to pacify nature. Do you know what that word means, pacify? You know what it means? Pacify. Yes. What's it mean? Yeah. Yes, make it peaceful. So there is a way to make nature cooperate with us. Give up sinful activity. Then you'll see the nature will change. It'll become sunny during the day and only rain at night. And now it rains all day long. You see. Yesterday, it wiped out the whole Northwest Folklife Festival. Wiped it out. It rained like anything, Everything got wet, People got disgusted. So you see, this weather, the bad weather, is a sign that too many people are sinful in that area. So if everyone stops sinning, these 4 pillars of sin, then then nature would cooperate with us. But no, people say, no, I don't believe that. No. We're going to find a way to stop the rain. Oh yeah, you show me how you're going to stop the rain. Or, oh well, it hasn't rained for a long time. We'll seed the clouds so that they rain. That's also nonsense. See, they think, oh well, science will save us. Now, science is not going to save you at all. In fact, science is the reason, and science and industry is the reason why there's so much sin. Prabhupada actually writes, it says these big industrial companies are actually places of sinfulness, and it destroys the human nature working in these type of factories. And he mentions specifically Tata factories in India. He said it's ruining people's lives, But now you have, IT, a different type of factory, IT factory, People are spending all their time trying to create a metaverse. Metaverse is an alternate reality that's going to take over the internet technology. And it's being prepared now. Even our own people are going to. Prabhuji, you're working in that? No, you're not in that part. Okay. So you see, they're preparing this so that you put this machine on your head, and you can create your own universe. That's why they call it metaverse. So you'll see, another year or 2 or 3 years, you'll see people walking around with these things, right? And eventually that thing will get smaller and smaller until it's a chip, and when you're born, they put it in your brain, and you'll be able to make your own universe, and other people can get into your universe and do nonsense. It's already happening. And one lady said, well, someone got into my metaverse and he insulted me and he made me cry. This is all, in virtual, right? They're letting people enter into other people's universe and influencing them, So, and influencing them, that was a light influence. The other influence is much worse than that that's happening already, right? So you see, this is all nonsense. And Prabhupada said, 200 years ago, there were no factories in India, and people were happy, and families were together. Not one child is in England, the other son is in Hong Kong, and the third son is in Michigan or Alabama, and the parents are alone now, and they're going to sell their ancestral lands because they can't take care of the cows anymore. They can't grow the vegetables anymore. So they'll end up in some concrete jungle in Bangalore or Hyderabad, in very unhealthy apartment buildings, and lonely because they had children so that the children would take over the farm, and nobody wants to work in a farm anymore. Or, for example, I was just talking to one friend of mine who's a devotee, and he was telling me how his mother is preaching. His mother came here and she got initiated, and now she's preaching in her village, and she's made some devotees there. I said, oh, that's good. She'll make the whole place Krishna conscious. He said, no, that's impossible. He said, when there was this partition of India and Pakistan, some of the elder Hindus in our village let the Muslims stay there, and they were in a minority. But now, he said, they're in the majority, and they have mosques, and we're not even allowed to go into their area anymore, and it's very dangerous for us. And in fact, whenever we have a festival like Diwali or something like that, if we have a parade into their neighborhood, they throw stones at us and they threaten to kill us. He said, now there's 6,000 Muslims and only 3,000 Hindus in our village, where before the whole village was Hindu with just a very few Muslims. But because they didn't throw the Muslims out when there was partition, and he said, and now none of the Hindus want to live in the villages anymore, but the Muslims are bringing people in from Bangladesh and other places, and now they have the majority. And of course, they're multiplying faster than the Hindus. So you see how things evolve in life, where one, and this, all this idea of different religions, different nationalities, different types of attachments, just creates more and more division in society. And he also said, and now they're trying to force all the Hindus to convert to Islam in the village. And his poor mother is making devotees from the Hindus. Why? Because they're Hindus, but they don't really follow their religion that much, right? Whereas the Muslims now, they have these big universities in Aligarh, which is it Aligarh, the name of it? Yeah, Aligarh. They have a university in which there's 30,000 young boys being trained to be imams, and then they go back to their village, and then they fanaticize. Before, the Muslims, like the Hindus, didn't really understand their religion that much, so they lived together. They didn't really get involved in killing each other. Now, because of the high level education that young village boys are getting in Islam, and that whole college is funded by the Wahhabis from Saudi Arabia, right? So they're funding these huge colleges in different parts of India, but the big one is Aligarh, and they're educating all these young boys to become fanatical imams and go back in the village and teach radical Islam. And now Hindus don't want to live in the villages anymore because they can make more money in the big cities, right? So you see that there's a major change taking place in India. And it's going to happen here too. So the more sinful one, and what time is it now? Okay, so we'll stop right there. I have a lot more to talk about, and we'll continue tomorrow. Are there any questions? Yes?
What does fanatical mean?
Fanatical? It means that you become very, very determined to convert other people to your religion. And let's say, and all the opinions you have are very, very strong opinions, and you don't tolerate other people's opinions. Everyone has to think like you. Everyone has to be like you. Otherwise, and the most fanatical people will kill people if they don't convert to their religion, or they don't adopt your way of thinking. That's what a fanatical person is, right? They don't get along with everybody. They force other people to be like them. But most of the time, they're very bad people, so they're trying to force people to be bad. And you'll meet people like that in school, so other students, they'll say, oh, you don't eat meat? Oh, you don't know what you're missing. And they'll try and convince you to eat meat. Then they'll try and convince you to do other things, like smoke cigarettes and smoke marijuana and this thing and that thing. And, those are fanatical people. They think that their way of life is the only way. Okay? So you should never be fanatical. But you can be passionate. And there's good passion and bad passion. But passion means you have a lot of enthusiasm to be Krishna conscious. And you like to help other people be Krishna conscious, but you don't force them. You don't threaten them. If you don't become Krishna, I'll kill you. Right? No. That's what a fanatic does. A devotee tries to help other people by doing good deeds. And the best deed is give them knowledge of Krishna. But you have to have knowledge to give it. So if you don't ever come to class, you'll never get any knowledge. If you only have material knowledge, you'll never be able to convince anyone to be Krishna conscious. You can only convince someone if you have spiritual knowledge. And you get spiritual knowledge in the temple. Any other questions? That's a good question. Okay, we'll stop. Continue again. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So anybody want to sing? You want to sing? Okay, you want the words? Here. Shri Guru
Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Bandamui Savadana Mate
Bando Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bai E Bhava Toriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai He Bhava Toriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Akya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Akya
Arana Koriyo Mane Asha
Arana Koya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charana Rati Ise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Evamatori
Shri Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Bhaktivedanta Dila Jai Janme Janme Prabhu say
Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito
Divya Gyan De Prakashito
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate
Shri Guru Nigaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jate
Vedikai Jahara Charito
Vedikai Janara Charito
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Damadan
Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu
Lokinath Lokiraji Ana
Lokinath Lokirachivana
Haha Prabhu Koro Doya Deo Padachaya
Aha Prabhu Kora Doya Deya Mori Padachaya
Ebi Jash Gushukti Bhuva
Ebeyak Susakti Bhuvana Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Bolo Hare Krishna 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 Krishna
Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Bolo Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaur Hari Bol Dayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Prarajagachara Astatara Satara Shri Shimad. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Ram Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhakti Smat Bhakti Smat. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, defender of poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your famous glad to all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani Ki Jai, Gaura Premanandi.